Well, if you don't know, my name's Kyle. I got to be here with you a couple of months ago. I am, along with others, planning a church in Ojai. Some of you have asked about it in just the last couple of minutes since I've seen you again. And man, it is going well. Since I was here last time with you, really what I've been doing is meeting with tons of churches and just asking would they be in and supporting and partnering with us. And it's just been a picture of God's goodness and His grace, and so I'm excited. And so many of you that I met last time I was here have been praying, and thank you. Well, it was about 5 years ago. I was in Florida, and we got to go to Florida for about a month with my family, and we lived in Utah at the time, Salt Lake City, Utah, and there was this couple that lived in Florida, and all their grandkids lived in Salt Lake City. And they said, hey, we live on the water in Florida. We want to see our grandkids. Would you swap houses with us for a month? And we said, that's a great idea. And so they swapped houses with us. We got to live right on the ocean for about a month. And every day we were in the water. And my boy that's 9 now, he was 4 then, he and I loved this game. So he would put on his floaty. We would go out in the ocean, and much warmer than the Pacific. And we would float, and he would play this game. He called it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he would hold on to me, and he'd say, I'm holding on to you, Papa. I'm holding on to you, Papa. And then he'd say, now I'm letting go. And then he'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He started off to see if he could let go of his dad and count to 5. And then he went to 10, and then he went to 50, and then he went to 100, and then he started making up numbers. And it was just fun. It was just a way that he and I were connecting. My wife would oftentimes, she would be on the shore, and she would be with our little guy who was 6 months old. And right as we were kind of winding down our time there, we're going and we're trying to soak it all in because Salt Lake City has some beautiful things, but it does not have the ocean, right? So we're trying to soak it all in, take it in, and he's like, Papa, let's go play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I said, okay, let's do it. So he puts on his gear, we get in the water, and we're out there. And in order to do it, you got to get out beyond the break so I can swim and he can float. And he lets go of me, and he's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he's counting. And all of a sudden, something grabs my foot, and it hurts like crazy. And I was like, what is going on? And I feel it, and it's just like this pinching, and it feels like this biting, and it's right on my left foot, and then it starts to pool. That's not cool, man, okay? I don't care how much time you spend in the water. I don't care how much, if you're afraid or not afraid of the ocean. When you're in the water, and it grabs you, and it hurts, and then it starts to go the other way, it's like, no, right? No. And I got my 4-year-old boy right there, and my wife is up on the beach, and I'm going, how do I navigate this? I don't want to freak him out. I don't want to freak her out, but I got to do something. Like, there is a problem that has to be addressed. So I'm like, buddy, come here. Okay, let me hold on to you. Let's try to get in a little bit. And anytime I would try to go towards the shore, it would just pull the other way and hurt like crazy. And so I moved a little bit in as much as I could, and I'm trying not to let him see that I'm hurt, but at some point I know I cannot do this without letting my wife know. So I'm like, Joy, that's her name. Joy. And I have to scream loud, right, because the waves are breaking. She looks up. I need your help. She's like, what are you talking about? I got a 6-month-old baby right here. Like, something has my foot. And all of a sudden, my 4-year-old goes, what? And she goes, what? She puts down the baby. All of a sudden, she looks like she was, on Baywatch. She's just like jumping in the water. She's swimming out there as fast as she can. My boy's like, is it going to get me? Is it going to get me? I'm like, it's not going to get you. So she comes out. I'm like, just get him. I don't know what this is. So she gets him, and she takes him in, and I'm moving as fast as I can without it just killing my foot. As we get closer to the shore, I finally get to where I can stand up, and I pick up my foot to look, and I have no idea what I'm going to see. And it's a stainless steel fish hook about the size of a credit card that's went through the webbing of my toes, and it's attached to about a tennis ball sized sinker, like just straight lead weight. And so anytime the tide was shifting, it would just pull against my foot, right? So I'm old school. My wife's city girl. I'm not. She's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, it's just coming out right now. I'm like, turn away. I thought about that story a lot because I had a problem, right? A big problem. But I didn't want to freak her out. I didn't want to freak my boy out. I didn't want to make it even more chaotic. Like, we had to address the issue, but I didn't know exactly how to go about it. And I think we can all have those things in our life. It starts to become apparent. It starts to become really obvious to us that there's a situation that must be dealt with. We look at our life, or we look at a relationship. We look at a path we're going down in life and we go, man, this isn't working. It's going to cause major chaos, but I've got to say something. I've got to do something. Or worse, we don't say something. We don't do something. We're starting a series today called Habits, Healthy Habits, right? And over the next 4 weeks, what we're going to talk about are things that often, we as people know we should discuss, but we don't want to discuss them because, man, they will upset the way that I live and work. They will cause us to often change the way we engage ourselves, engage others, yes, for the good, but man, it can be difficult, it can be chaotic, it can be trouble. Today, the first one we're going to kick it off with, one that most often challenges everyone as long as they're a breathing, thinking human, is the idea of rest. Now, don't get me wrong, I think as people, we believe and we think and we know that rest is good. We just are terrible at it. And I mean like really bad at it, right? Like, we say it's good, but what do we want? What do we say to each other all the time when we see each other? How you doing? Good. How was your week? What's the first thing you say? Busy. Nobody says, man, it was awesome. I just rested. Has anybody ever said that to you? How was your week? Super restful. No. It was busy. Oh, my calendar, it's so much. It's crazy right now. Now, we know we should want rest. We know in our hearts that, man, we need it. Like, my mind needs it, my body needs it, my relationships need it. But we're a culture that glamorizes the grind. Like, it's how we show our worth in a way. It's how we prove that we mean something. We've bought into this lie that the grind, that the constant go is what we should be doing. Now maybe you're someone who hasn't been in church much, and you're like, oh, is he going to talk to me about that Sabbath thing? Like, I've heard about that. Didn't people get that really jacked up? And if you read your Bible, man, God is all about rest, and it seems like his people often are all about messing up the way he calls us to rest. So today we want to take seriously his invitation to rest. And how I want to do it is look at the words of Jesus, look at the life of Jesus, and look at one of the most famous scriptures that followers of God have been praying and have been trusting for thousands of years, and maybe go, can I step out of the religious way to think about rest? And can I leave behind our culture's way of glamorizing the grind and begin to practice a new habit, a new way of resting and knowing God in ways and areas that I couldn't imagine? I think what you'll see as we walk through this is that it's not just about rest. And what do I mean by that? It's not just about giving yourself a break. It's about giving yourself new eyes to see, a new way to think, a new way to know that you are loved. There's this thing that Jesus says in Matthew chapter 11. It sounds beautiful. It says, come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened. How many of you would tick that box today? And I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. See, those aren't my words. Those are Jesus' words. And he's saying, if you come to me, if you follow me, if you know me, one of the main things you will be identified by is rest, is peace. Jesus said he was coming to bring a new kingdom, like a new way of life. And one of the markers of that way of life was rest and peace. See, Jesus isn't about glamorizing the grind. He is absolutely not about just being busy for the sake of being busy. He says, if you come to me, if you really know me, you will know rest. Do you feel that way today? And I know not everybody here follows Jesus, but for those who say they do, do you feel at peace? Do you feel like you've been resting in him? It's okay if you say no. Because our culture fights this more than just about anything. Like I said earlier, we'll talk about the idea of loving rest, but we have these machines we carry around that are about the biggest enemy of rest you could ever imagine, right? Even when you think you're resting, even when you're sitting down, even when you're kicking back on the couch or wherever you read what you read, we're not going to talk about that, right? You just jump in there and you start to go and your mind is not resting. Jerry Seinfeld has a great bit. He's like, we're so obsessed with what we're going to do next as people. He goes, we'll talk about, we'll get tickets to something. And we'll talk about, hey, when are we going to leave? When are we going to go to the show? When are we going to go to the show? 20 after 7, 20 after 7? Great. We go to the show. And then we talk about, hey, when do you think we should get out of here? What time do we need to get out of here now, right? He's like, we're always talking about that. I have a sister. She is amazing, but she plans these elaborate vacations for her family. And it'll be on her mind for the year, I can't wait for this vacation. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And lines out this amazing itinerary. And then as soon as she gets there, it's like, man, I just can't wait to be home. Just can't wait to be home. I know none of you are like that, right? We're obsessed with what is next. In a way, we become addicted to it. Do you know the little, when you're on your phone, whether it's Instagram, whether it's your news feed, whether it's Twitter, and you get to the end of the list and you pull it down and that little thing spins because it's going to refresh? Do you know that your brain loves that dopamine hit? You know that scientists study that? We want to know what's next. But Jesus is saying, man, actually, the way that your soul was designed is to know rest, is to know peace. One of the reasons that we step into rest as followers of Jesus is because rest is the great truth teller. See, if we stay busy all the time, we don't have to deal with the idea that maybe when we hear those words of Jesus, we don't resonate with them. But if we sit back for a moment and reflect, all of a sudden we go, man, what he says there, I'm not experiencing. What he says there, I haven't really tasted that. See, rest is the great truth teller that begins to show us that we've been looking for salvation, or we've been looking for value in being busy all the time. Last year, I don't think I told you this the last time I was up, but last year in August, I had a severe head injury. And for the first time in my life, I had a health issue that wasn't like a cold, I've been blessed. I've been lucky. Many of you've dealt with health things your whole life. But for whatever reason, I was able to make it to 43 without having anything like that. And then I have this head injury. And there's nothing I could do but rest. There's nothing I could do but sit there and begin to go, oh man, what are the ways that I've been finding value outside of God? What are the ways that I've been looking for hope outside of Him? See, I'm addicted to wanting to prove to you that I'm valuable. I don't remember not feeling that way ever. Like I remember as a little kid thinking, man, I'll do this for my dad. I'll make sure the dog's fed. I'll make sure the snow is shoveled away. I'll make sure it's all handled so he'll be like, man, that's my boy, right? I'm not saying I never messed up, but I always would think that way. I got a paper route when I was 10. I started working at a furniture store when I was 13. Like I always felt like I needed to prove that I was worth it. When you have a head injury, and you can't talk to more than 2 people at once, you can't prove much by how you work or what you can offer them. What I start to wonder is if we avoid rest because it starts to show us and tell us and teach us that not only have we become busy people, but we're kind of addicted to that busyness. John Ortberg says, hurry is not a disordered schedule. Hurry is a disordered heart. And why is this so important? Why is having a rightly ordered heart where hurry and busyness is not a part of our life? Is it just to do something to show God, hey, we're doing what you said, or is there's something that we get from it? Well, Jesus seemed to tap into that in his life. I read through my Bible over the last week and thinking about this, and I counted 12 times. 12 times Jesus comes on the scene and he starts preaching and teaching, and people start coming, and 12 times, do you know what he does? He leaves. Like people are showing up, and it's like he's like, hey guys, let's get out of here. It says he would go to the mountains. It says he would get on a boat. He would do anything and everything just to peace out at certain times. He needed rest. 12 times. Like it makes you think, Jesus, your ministry's only was 3 years, dude. Couldn't you just hang in there for that moment? Couldn't you just push a little harder? I think he was trying to show us something. See, the rest that he invited us to in that passage that I read was the rest that he lived in relationship with his Father. See, what I've come to believe is that Jesus, in the way he engaged people, he did it the exact opposite way that we do. So what he did is he always made sure he had time with the Father first, with God. Always. Like the masses could be out there. And it said he would escape away so that he could be with God. That was first. And then he took the next kind of level, like the next step would be with his close, intimate community, his disciples, his family. So first it was God, and then it was his close, intimate community, and he would pour into them and live life with them, and then after that, it was the masses. And in my experience, in the way my mind thinks, in the way I've seen a lot of people live, we do it the flip. The masses. All those other people, we think, man, I have to go do this and I have to go do that. And then if I have a little bit of time left over, then I'll have time for my intimate family, like my close connections, like my community. And then if I have any time after that, God. And we don't understand that Jesus is showing us a way, not out of some religious duty, but so that we can actually know what real love is. See, when you rest, when you're not performing, and someone loves you and wants to spend time with you, and you're not doing anything for them, you're not showing up and showing them how valuable you are, man, that's when you know that they love you. That head injury for months. What I could offer my wife as far as in helping her take care of our home and our kids, it was small. Every day, she just kept loving me. That's a small picture of our God. And what Jesus comes and lives and shows us is that when we rest, we can absolutely know what the real love of God is. He's not asking us to be his army. He's not asking us to perform and prove to him why he should love us. He's saying, rest and know that you are absolutely loved. There's this passage that I told you that followers of God have been praying and speaking for thousands and thousands of years that speak about God and who he is at his very core. We even sang part of it in the first song this morning. It's Psalm 23, and it says this: "The Lord is my shepherd, I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live." What happens is when we start to rest, it is the great truth teller. It starts to tell us things in ways maybe we've been trying to ignore. But I don't want you to fear that, because if you keep stepping into rest, what you will know very quickly is God's love. And then what you will taste almost immediately is what this passage says is God's grace. And as a church, we talk about God's grace all of the time, but I don't want it to be something that I know. I don't want it to be something that I can answer questions about. I want it to be something that I've lived, right? I want it to be something that I've tasted. I don't want to be able to tell you about it. I want to be able to tell you how my life has been changed by it. Did you hear this passage? The Lord is my shepherd. I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. See, I think a lot of times we think about God and we're like, the Lord is my drill sergeant, right? And he's asking me to show him that I've mastered this last lesson. No. This is the God who leads us to a place of literally resting, sleeping, napping. That's the picture that the Bible says of who our God is. It doesn't say the Lord is my shepherd. He puts me through the harshest training. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. It says he renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. This is a God who just wants to be with us, who doesn't want us to think that those other things out there that we constantly think we have to go after are what matters most, because what matters most is our connection and our life with him. It says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. The picture is that the enemy is right out there. But God isn't freaking out. God isn't saying, go fight them. God isn't saying, what are we going to do? He's saying, let me prepare you a meal. When we rest, we start to realize just how big our God is and how small those other things are that are coming against us. He's not threatened by those things that are daunting to us. This passage says he prepares a table, a feast for us. And then he anoints our head with oil. It says the oil overflows. I'm bald, so that sounds great. I know some of you got a lot of hair, so you're like, that's weird. But no, that meant the presence of God was on you. That he was sealing you. That he was marking you. That he was saying, you are mine. And he didn't do it with a little bit of oil. He's like, we're just going to, I don't want you to question for a second that you are mine. He renews my life. He restores my soul, other translations say. This is who our God is. And when we live into busyness, hurriedness, when that temptation to glamorize the grind in our culture, we give into it, we miss all of this. But today, we don't have to hang our heads. Because Jesus' promise to give our souls rest, it's not like we missed out on it, we can't get it back. No, we can walk away from that life of believing in the grind, from like focusing on the hurry. And we can know a God who leads us beside quiet waters, who lets us lie down in green pastures. Who even right now, because that's often our thing, like, Kyle, do you know what I'm up against right now? God does. And he's saying, let me prepare a table for you. Let me let you know that you are mine. Can we all take steps? Can we all have a new habit of glamorizing rest, of trusting in his rest? Now, this is where it can get tricky because, like I said, church people, man, we have legalized this to death in the past. But the first thing I would say to you, if you want to know what does it look like to begin to rest, man, prioritize prayer. Think about that. One of the most beautiful ways you can rest before God is to just go before your Father and just tell him what's on your heart. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's where I'm at. Tell him what you're frustrated about. Tell him what you're wondering about. Tell him what you're struggling with. Remember, he's not the God who's judging you. He's the God who's anointing you. Count your busies. What do I mean by that? Someone asks you, how's it going? How's your week? Man, it's busy. Just count that. See how many you come up with in a week. My guess it's going to be over 20. We are obsessed with that. As a pastor, it's my favorite thing in time. Hey, how was your week? Busy. Great. Click. Right? I ain't judging. Come on. But count your busies and start to see just how much maybe subliminally you've walked into this life of glamorizing the grind. I learned this in a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, which is a fantastic read on this topic. But put your phone to bed. My boys go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, and so does my phone. And I'm not kidding. Like, I go in, we pray, we give them good night, and then I go and I don't pray over my phone. I just plug it in and leave it in another room. But it is awesome. I remember, like, I love sports, and forever I watched sports my whole life growing up, and then all of a sudden it's like I needed my phone with me so that I could find out what other people were saying about the game while I was watching the game, right? It's like, I have to have this. That friend that I knew that one time in 2012, he disagrees with me and I'm angry, you know? Put your phone to bed. If we get up in the morning, Instead of rolling over and grabbing it and checking your feed, prioritize prayer. Here's my favorite. Write checks your calendar can cash, right? You know what I mean by that? Remember the first time, my boys now, my 5-year-old, we've had some work done on our house this year, and they like, some of them like checks. And I'm like, I haven't written a check in forever. I kind of feel like Ben Stiller in Zoolander. Like, I don't know exactly how to do this again. But I start writing the check, and he's like, what is that? I'm like, oh, you put this dollar amount down and you give it to, he's like, does that mean you have all the money in the world? I'm like, no, it doesn't. But we think that way with our calendar. We say yes to everything. And then we're these people who are just almost slaves to busyness. Look at your calendar and see what you prioritize. You've heard that in the money world, right? You want to see where your heart is? Look where you spend your money. You want to see where your heart is? Look where you spend your time. The last one, figure out a way for you where you can truly practice and live out rest. It's going to be different. Find what renews your soul. What do you enjoy? My wife loves walks. I'll be honest, I don't. She's not here, and hopefully my 9-year-old won't tell her. But I have my ways of resting. Find out what kind of renews you, fulfills you. If it's a nap, great. If it's painting, awesome. If it's surfing, fantastic. If you've learned anything today, I hope you see God isn't up there going, that is not proper rest, right? You say, no, you're my son, you're my daughter. I want you to know you don't perform for me, and that I love you. I want to restore your soul, is what he says. I want in your gnarliest circumstances you to know I'm there providing for you. And I never want you to forget that you are mine. We don't rest out of obligation. We rest because it's honest with us. We rest because when we rest, we know what real love is. And we rest because it's how we taste and experience and receive the true grace and goodness of God. Let's pray. God, thank you. Thank you that your word is not an invitation, God, to a burden, but an invitation to healing, an invitation to renewal. Father, help us to see that and trust in that. God, let us know we can be honest with you, that we haven't felt the rest that Jesus promises. And then let us give you our life and let you begin to show us what that looks like to truly rest. We thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.